Yo, everybody! Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of the Ring show. We're here with your host Sabrina and
Harley.
And today we have a special guest, all the way from Florida. Here's KEKOA.
I wouldn't say special. I would say mediocre at best.
Mediocre at best.
I appreciate the build up for it. So thank you, and thank you both for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Of course. How are you doing today?
Not gonna lie, a little tired. I had a very early flight this morning. I flew back from North Carolina. I had to be up at like 3:45 to get to the airport. To then, obviously get here early. And I did it to myself. I was up late. I was kind of laying in bed and I'm just like scrolling and I kept going. And I think my brain wouldn't shut off. So then I'm staring at the clock. I'm like, I think I'm just going to sleep on the plane now because I'm barely getting any sleep. But overall, just another day. So I'm good.
Were you scrolling through TikTok?
I was gonna say that too. It was probably TikTok.
It was a little bit of everything because I like to go on TikTok, see how things are doing there, and then I'll hop over to Twitter, see if there's anything that is going on that I might have missed, that my wife hadn't told me about, because she's usually on that. She's usually like "Oh, this is happening right now," or "Did you hear this? Did you hear that?" So she's usually the person that feeds me the gossip, or the world news, I should say. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Sabrina's in her car, so if she froze, that's what's gonna happen. I think she froze.
Yeah, I figured that. I was like, otherwise she's doing the what was it? The mannequin challenge, and that's a little outdated for now. Oh, there she is. There she goes.
I'm good. I swear. I've knocked my phone down because I'm in my car, so I knocked my phone down. I went, oh crap, and then so we're good.
It's all right. I think I can handle it if you get kicked out.
She almost had to because I'm like sick, and she's like, it's okay, I can handle it myself. I was like, nah, I got this. Let's go.
She's like, I haven't talked to him or seen him in so long.
I know. So
it's been a couple of years for Harley, so we're going on, coming up on 3 years now since I've seen you, because that last show that you were at before we moved was March of 2020.
Yeah.
Sabrina, I don't even remember the last time.
Yeah, let's not even go back that far. Let's not even go back that far. I was telling Harley, I said, I keep telling everyone, like, I met you, I met Jimmy and Luca when I was 16. Then I went back and I looked at the dates on the photos, and it was 2014. No, it was earlier than that, 2010. And I was 14 years old. And I was like, okay, so it's longer than I thought it was. So, like, I don't even want to relive that part of my life.
So, yeah, only 12 years. Not
only 12 years. No big deal. But, Harley, you want to ask the first question?
Oh, sure. Let's just start. Who got you into wrestling?
So I was told that my dad, put me in front of the television. And now, as I'm a dad, I've figured out that, you don't really have like a game plan. You just kind of put something on the television and see what your kid's going to focus on. And I guess wrestling was my thing. So I guess I was like 2 or 3 years old, from what I'm told. And, I started watching wrestling, and then it was just kind of like, all right, I'm stuck to it. And then, I watched it all, growing up as a little kid, and I think my parents were waiting for me to kind of grow out of it, and obviously it never did. So I think at one point I kind of not abandoned it by any means, but I wasn't as an avid fan for a brief moment. And I think it's only because I was in high school at that point. I was playing sports. I was hanging out with friends. So I think my attention kind of took away from it for a brief moment, but I went right back to it because I'm like, no, this is kind of what I'm stuck with.
Yeah, that's probably how my mom is. She's like, oh my God, you're always talking about wrestling or shows. I'm like, Mom, wrestling is the best.
Yeah.
Like,
sorry, Mom.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So I have a question. I don't know if I've ever seen you play the heel. Do you like to be the baby face or the heel?
I generally like to be babyface. I think it's because I just have I have more of I just can't be mean to people. I think that's really what it comes down to. You, Miss Sabrina, saw me as a heel for a hot second when I came back from my ACL injury when I was with Elite Wrestling. I was heel for
Oh
like
my God.
a very
Yeah,
brief
okay.
moment, but the
Uh-huh.
problem was I had so many people that had, because at that point I had been wrestling for 9 years, so there were so many people that were, you know, behind me in that aspect, and then I just came back from an injury, so everyone was happy that I came back. But then I was trying to be a bad guy, and you know, people were like, "Yeah, but I've always liked you. I've always, you know, wanted to, you know, to cheer for you, and was waiting for you to come back." And you know, as Pat Anthony is saying, I saw KEKOA play heel one time in Delaware, and he was not convinced. I think the other problem was when I did come back as a heel, because I had this brand new helmet and this big robe and everything. People were, I had even fans come up to me and they're like, "Listen, I know that I'm supposed to hate you, but I really like your gear and like it, and you look badass, and I want to cheer for you." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that kind of backfired." But overall, like companies were just, it's very hard to be a good guy. It's very hard to be a babyface in wrestling, because if you look, the example that I give everybody is, you know, go to a party that no one has any idea who you are. How hard is it to get, you know, 100 people at a random party that you've never met, get 100 people to like you? It's very, very difficult to get everybody to like you. Now go to that same party, and how easy is it to get everyone to hate you? You could sneeze wrong and people are like, "Who the hell is this guy?" You know, like I think it's very hard to be a baby face, and I think I've figured out a way to do it. So I think that also didn't help when promoters were like, "No, we kind of want you to stay this way." I'm like, "All right, it is what it is."
It's crazy because like now I'm remembering, because I was like, that was when, you know, Jimmy Nuts was there, Mark
Hmm.
Angel, like Chad
Hmm.
Flowers, like a whole bunch of you, and I remember you coming out, and I was like, this isn't KEKOA, like, because I remember you from Bath all the way back in the day when I
Hmm.
first met you, and you were like you were a babyface, so seeing you at the heel, it was kind of, it was different, but you know, like I said in our last podcast, like I tend to root for the heels anyways,
Hmm.
so
So
I'll
you only
always root
cheered
for
for
the
me
heels.
for a minute. You only cheered for me for a minute. That's what you're telling me.
Um,
That's what you're telling me.
Next question.
That's fine. It's fine.
Shame on you, Sabrina.
You know what? Every podcast, I swear, every wrestler has said I am a poor fan because I'm not either wearing their merch or I'm not cheering for them. And this, we're just gonna keep it going.
And it's a little bit of both, because you've already said, you know, that you cheer for the bad guy, and you don't have any of my shirts. So
In my defense, I'm going to Bible study after this, and I didn't want like.
I mean, I have a job's not finished T-shirt on right now. What is more fitting for church than just saying we should always continue to prayer. We should always continue our religion focus, our spiritual aspect. I mean, the spiritual job is never finished. There's no more fitting of a T-shirt. I'm just saying. I'm just
Okay,
throwing
all
things out
right,
there.
I get you. I get you. Okay, you know, I feel the love in here tonight. Harley, can you ask another question, please?
Okay, so who trained you?
So I was originally trained at a school. It was a one-off school. We had like, well, one and a half classes, I should say. I don't think the second class actually even finished, but I could be mistaken. But the school was called Lehigh Valley Pro Wrestling Training Academy. It was in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Um, my trainers were Benchmark Bill Daly. His sidekick, his partner, was Buzz Bentley, and then we also had the veteran of the trainers. It was Mike Mongoose. Those were my three trainers that you know, that got me ready. And it's hard, you know, a lot of the stuff that I talk about as far as, you know, when people ask me like who trained me, because I've gotten the compliment of it seems like you have a good foundation of the basics, so on and so forth. I thought I had amazing training. It's unfortunate that what happens a lot is if people don't know who your trainers are, then you know, it's tough to get people to trust you a little bit more, to know if you were trained correctly. So I've kind of had to proven that because they haven't had as successful of a career as some of these guys that were in WWE, WWF, Impact, so on and so forth. Bill had a pretty good career. Unfortunately, with injuries, it was kind of cut short. But overall, I wanted to kind of carry their name because I felt very proud of the training that I've gotten, and I've seen other schools in my tenure, and I'm like, we had way better training than a lot of these schools had. So very proud from where I came from.
And you trained people as well, and you still do.
Yes and no. So I did have a school for a brief moment. And I never really planned on having the school. I started gathering things for wrestling companies because there was so many times I would go to shows and they're like, oh, the DJ called out, or oh, the ring guy's late. I don't know if we're gonna have that, or this or that, whatever. There's so many of those occasions. So I'm like, well, if I just have everything, I'm already coming to these shows, so then they can just rent my stuff and then I'll take care of them, because I'm very much, a man of my word. I feel like I'm always, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I don't call out, like it. So, companies trusted me. So that's how it essentially started. That's why I have a ring and an entranceway and DJ equipment, video equipment, all these things. And then it just kind of happened where, a local gym was looking for wrestling training, and then someone kind of gave them my name, and I wasn't really sure if it was something that I wanted to do, but I thought of it from the aspect of, I want to do good in the world of wrestling, and if I can add any type of little bit of positivity into the world of wrestling, then maybe I can do that. So I did for a little bit until obviously I moved to Florida. Now, since I've been down here, I've helped people. I've given my advice, or I've done private training sessions if somebody wants to work on something specifically. But as far as like, am I a trainer? No, I'm not a trainer. I guess I would call myself an aide or a guide in that instance.
Okay. Well, you good over there? Why are you laughing? You good? Okay.
No, I'm good. Okay, so who is your dream opponent or dream match?
It's a very long list because, it varies too, because you're like, okay, well, who's your dream match? Well, there's a ton of people from the past that I would have loved to face. There's a ton of people that are current that I would love to face. There's a ton of people, that I'm going to meet in the future that are going to blow up that, I will like to face. But overall, I've always had the mentality of, I just want to face the best in the world, because that's a challenge. That's something that I look at, that I just want to get better, every single day. So of course, I can rattle off, I would have loved to face Ricky Steamboat back in the day, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, all of these legends. Then there's guys current. I would love to face Cena, Orton, Roman, all of these major guys, anybody, just anybody. I just want to wrestle everybody. I just want to just be the best that I can be.
Yeah, that's great. You basically want to fight every single person in the world.
Everybody. Send them.
Sorry, Sabrina.
No. I'm not that strong. Let's start out with someone smaller, like Ruda yesterday. He's 5'5", We start out there first.
So KEKOA versus Sammy, custody of the kids ladder match coming 2025. I mean, I've faced Sammy now on shows. Hang on, one. Well, if we count our wedding too, I lost at our wedding. I've lost against her 3 times on shows and once at our wedding. So if that match happens, I'm probably going to lose again. So I wouldn't recommend that storyline.
I love that. That's amazing. Let's see. What is your favorite thing about wrestling?
My favorite thing about wrestling is that it's brought me everything. There's so much to it. The first thing that I always say is, if I didn't have wrestling, I would probably be 400 pounds and playing Call of Duty every single day and just eating pizza and drinking Mountain Dew, and I wouldn't be worried about my health. So I don't have purpose. If I don't have wrestling, I don't have purpose. Of course, being a dad is amazing, and I'm not saying that they're not a purpose by any means, but as far as, because I've had this purpose, it's continued to bring me everything that I now have. If I didn't have wrestling, I wouldn't have focused on, trying to be in the best shape that I can be. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have kids. I wouldn't have the house. I wouldn't be living in Florida. Like, everything that I have right now has essentially been a decision from wrestling. So if you ask that question of like, what do I like about wrestling, is everything that it's brought me, and what it's going to continue to bring me, hopefully.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's going to lead into my next question that you kind of like said something about it. Is it hard being a father and wrestler, or is it like, would you say it's the same?
It gets to be hard, when, especially now, because my daughter's almost 2, and she's learning more and more every day, and I want to be there for all of the moments that I can be. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that I'm going to hinder myself if more opportunities, come my way, by all means. That's why I was in North Carolina this week, because opportunities presented itself. That's why I travel to these shows, because opportunities present themselves. But it does get hard when, you are away, and then I get videos from Sammy, and, she says a new word, or she's trying a new food, or, just anything, these little moments that I might miss. That part sucks. But overall, there's things that I'm okay with missing, and there's things that I'm not okay being at and missing. So, I talked about it with, the value of time, and just saying, like, if you're doing something that you absolutely hate, and then you're missing something that you absolutely love, then it's not worth your time. But if you're doing something you love, it's going to at least make it okay for the things that you're missing. But it's always going to come down to what's most important to you. And of course, my kids are number one, but it's right here. They're right behind each other.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. Sabrina, do you want to ask him a question?
Okay, I'll just pretend that I have questions in my hands. No, if now I know you've been wrestling for a while. Is there a time where you're gonna say, like, okay, it's time to be like done, or is it like whenever your body gives out, kind of thing?
Or in other words, how old do you want to be when you retire?
I don't have that answer, because I think for some guys, that have retired recently and called it quits, I think that they had their own date in their head of, if I'm not signed, if I'm not a full-time wrestler by this time, then it's probably never going to happen. And then they just want to kind of, ride off into the sunset. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially because I know that they have kids, and they're like, I just want to be home with them. Now it really comes down to everyone's, personal answer. For me specifically, of course I want to be there for my kids, but I think that my window is still open for accomplishing the ultimate dream of being signed and, a full-time wrestler with, some company. As far as fast forwarding to that, so, if you're comparing me to the same of, like, if I'm 42 years old and I don't have a contract, are you call it quits? Well, we'll see when I'm 42 if I'm still physically able to do it. If I'm still physically able to do it, and I still have passion for it, then I'll probably keep going. So I think it's definitely more of a body thing, and also a passion thing, and again, if I feel like it's something that I still want to do, which I don't foresee that ever slowing down.
So
for
like
good or
it's
for worse.
their kind of thing.
Yeah, feel it out. Just feel it out. Because again, one random day, obviously with my second daughter about to be born, it could be 3-4 years down the road if I'm still not signed, and then one day all of a sudden I wake up one day and I'm like, I don't want to wrestle ever again. I just want to be home with the kids. Like, that could happen. I'm not saying that it is going to happen or it's not going to happen. I don't know what the future holds, but for me, if I've been doing this now for 16 years and I have no intentions or no sign, or my drive and my motivation hasn't come down whatsoever, I don't foresee that happening in the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's big. that would lead up to my like next question. Where would you see yourself in 5 years?
And that's something that I always talk about with, like, you can't, like, even with, when you go for a job, people ask you what's your 5-year goal or what's your 10-year goal. um I hate that question because in 2020, at the beginning of 2020 in January, if you would have asked me where do I see myself in December of 2020 at the end of the year, I would have said, in my house. Like, where else would I be? I just bought a house. Like, I'm going to be with, my wife. At that point, we weren't pregnant yet. So, I'm going to be with my wife. We're going to be by the Christmas tree. Like, where else would I be? But then August comes around. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I get asked to, to go to WWE. I go. And then all of a sudden, my whole mindset changes of, maybe it's time to move to Florida and be around all of this amazing talent in Florida and be around the best in the world and learn from them and just constantly be around them and have that be your circle, because that's what's going to help you get to that next level. So now in August, I'm literally about to fly home back to Pennsylvania, and I'm talking with Sammy, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's time to move to Florida. Maybe it's time to change my circle. So if you ask me in the beginning of August, where do you see yourself by December? That answer is still the same as January. But now middle of August, I'm having that conversation. And by the time, I had that conversation before I got on the plane, by the time I landed and Sammy picked me up, I said, no, screw it. We're selling the house and we're moving. So within 2 hours, I completely changed my answer. So it's hard. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I have no idea. I have no idea, but as long as I'm healthy and I'm happy and I have my girls, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I get that. You don't miss the snow either, so.
1000%. I absolutely don't miss the snow.
Winter, just cut winter out.
Listen, when I flew to North Carolina this week, I left 80-degree weather. I landed in North Carolina. Where we drove to, it was higher elevation, it was windy, and it was 43 degrees, and I was still in shorts because I thought, like, oh yeah, it's still warm everywhere. No, I forgot. Like, it's October, and I forgot the north, and I also didn't know that we were getting to that high of elevation, so it was freezing, and I was like, yeah, I didn't dress for this. Now we're having a little bit of a cold front down here, but from where I just came from, I'm like, yeah, this is nothing. So no, I don't miss the snow. I don't miss the cold.
What would you say has been your favorite match you were in? Like, out of your whole time wrestling, what is your favorite match?
Pat saying winter weather over hot, humid weather. I will die on this hill. Pat also, it could be 65 degrees in a room and he is sweating. So that doesn't count, to everybody. That's just his opinion and his body temperature. I don't know what the issue is, but anywho, my favorite match, it's hard because I like different matches for different reasons. So to give you an instance, like, I grew up with Chad Flowers, who was JC Wessler at one point, and then he was Caveman Chad at one point. So I grew up with him. Like, we've known each other since we were little kids. When we were in middle school and going into like our freshman year of high school, we used to leave school and we would walk to a local bar, and it's called thank you, Patrick. We would leave school, we would walk to a local bar, and we would go to independent shows. And now you fast forward from middle school to, I forget what year it was, but we wrestled in that same building. It wasn't one of my favorite matches of all time because of the match, but it was a great moment for me. It was just cool. So you have that. It was, my first time on TV. Cool. Getting to do a match on, a fight, and then doing a gender reveal on live pay-per-view. Amazing. So, like, I have all these cool moments. I don't think it's a specific match. And it's hard to compare because I might have a great match with one person, but another person, we had this long storyline that had this lovely payoff, or this just phenomenal match at the end of it. But this match might have been better than that one, but the story adds to it. So it's very hard to answer that. I just have a lot of cool moments that I will, tell the grandkids.
Oh, yeah. Do you collect anything?
I was kind of a DVD collector Then everything went digital, and I kind of went off that. I don't think I'd collect anything now. Um, when I was a kid, I was definitely an action figure, collector. I would always, I'd get actually really mad because my best friend Matt, um, his dad worked in, because I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. His dad worked in New Jersey. So when his dad would go to Toys R Us in New Jersey, he would see a whole different set of action figures that wasn't in Pennsylvania. So then his dad would get him all the action figures that I didn't have, and I would get really mad about that. So no, I haven't really collected anything, since the DVD days. So, and those are long gone. So no, I'm good now.
No, yeah. Serena, you have any questions at all?
Listen.
Yeah, pull out the handy dandy notebook that I saw that you have, and let's.
No, I want to like circle back to you and JC, because like, I mean, when I met JC, it was just JC Wrestler, and then he transformed into Chad Flowers. My question was, were you always the Flying Hawaiian, or did you change it a little bit?
So I was the Flying Hawaiian KEKOA for 9 years, and then when I tore my ACL, I thought that was the point where, okay, I should change, who I was. And I also, and it wasn't just because of the ACL tear. When I was getting opportunities to advance my career, what I kept being told was, Keikoa, the Flying Hawaiian character, is always going to be here. We don't see him as a top tier guy. You're a generic Hawaiian, happy-go-lucky guy. Like, we need more of a character. We need more story. Just need more of you. So then I was playing around with, like, well, what do I do now? I've been doing this for 9 years as the same person. So when I tore my ACL, I was like, okay, well, this is the time to do it now, because now I'm going to be gone. I'm forced. So now change everything. So I came up with the King Keikoa character and, shifted to that. Like, okay, now I'm going to be heel because I've never been heel. But then once I was getting pushed back to being a good guy, and I spent all this money on this gear and this cool helmet that's now sitting collecting dust, I'm like, well, I need to use it for something. So then it was, okay, well, Keikoa already, like, Keikoa it means courageous warrior in Hawaiian. So I'm like, why don't I just call myself the Hawaiian warrior? It's been there in front of me the whole time. I just never really saw it. So then it's, okay, change it to Keikoa the Hawaiian warrior. All right, put the helmet on, and then now change like the style a little bit to maybe not as flashy and more aggressive. They're two different people. And then I saw, a need for, I'm always told, like, that I'm people like following me on social media because they're like, hey, you give me inspiration or motivation for different things. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me use that. If that's what my following is already, then let me just kind of combine all of that into one thing. So that's how, like, essentially everything has evolved.
Yeah.
And you did great at it. Like, I mean, when I met you, you were Flying Hawaiian. I think at Elite is when you turned to the warrior, kind of.
Yeah.
But no, it's wow. Elite's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. And actually, that same building that the Elite shows were held at, that's where my company, Work Rate Entertainment, was about to go. Because we were looking to expand out of the Poconos, and I wanted to go there specifically because I knew, how great of an area it is to run shows. And I had spoken with the building. We had a contract in place, and then the pandemic came, and then I left, and then I went, there goes that.
It's so simple. COVID, and then bam, I'm gone.
COVID, everything ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest part about wrestling?
Dealing with Serena as a fan, that is horrible.
Answer done.
Next question.
Next question. No, the hardest part about wrestling is definitely understanding the psychology aspect of it, and and also getting people to understand, like, maybe the direction of where things need to go. I know that's a little bit of a more in-depth answer. So to kind of give you and anyone listening, what I mean by that is, if you think of it as essentially as a puzzle, when you're looking at it as a puzzle, when everyone starts putting the puzzle together, you start to go like, okay, maybe this goes here, maybe this goes here, maybe this goes here, and then you step back and you're like, oh wait, that might not look right, and then you kind of stare at it until you get more and more and more experience. All of a sudden, you're going to be a master of puzzles, and you're going to be able to look at a puzzle, and without even trying to look at it, if that makes sense, you're going to look at it and you go, that doesn't make any sense, and then you're going to be able to move the puzzle pieces around, and then all of a sudden find it. It's very hard to step back and see how the puzzle pieces are supposed to go. I'm not saying that I'm a master at it by any means. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp at it, but I of course, I always want to learn and continue to be better at it. I want to get to that master level. But I feel pretty confident that I am able to look at a puzzle and figure out what the order should be, but it's very hard to get to that point.
Yeah. If you were on both, but if you had to choose like to be on the main roster, would you choose AEW or WWE?
The only reason that I would say WWE is just because it's always been the childhood dream, but it's you can't say that because AEW wasn't around when I was a kid, so it's hard to say that. When you look at the different styles between what AEW is doing and what WWE is doing, because I think that there's a lot of similarities, but I also think that there's vast differences between the companies. I think that my style tends to lean maybe towards WWE, but that doesn't mean that I'm not interested in going to AEW by any means. I've worked for both. Obviously, with the recent changes within WWE and now Hunter taking over, it's going to be a completely different aspect, and obviously everyone's seeing it. It's a different show. People are getting more excited about what's happening, and they like the new structure and everything of that sort. So I think I still tend to lean towards that as far as what I think I would fit best in. But I'm not saying that I can't adapt to what AEW is doing, or that my style won't fit there. I think, again, just to answer your question, I think it's just because it was a childhood thing and AEW wasn't around. So I think that's the only reason I would say WWE.
Yeah, and Sabrina over here doesn't even watch WWE. Or
listen.
She doesn't watch wrestling in general, so
listen. Okay, you know what? Enough about. Okay, all right. Okay, we get it. Every podcast we go through this.
This is a wrestling podcast. He doesn't even have a wrestling shirt on.
But no, right? KEKOA, I'll give you this. This is the answer I've been giving. So the reason I don't watch that stuff is like, I don't know, the indies and like stuff like that I go to, I feel it's just more personable, and like I can be like, oh wow, and feel the action. Whereas like if I'm watching it on TV, I'm not feeling that same experience of like, oh my gosh, I can hear the bangs, I can hear like I don't know, it's all about the experience for me. So like being at these shows, I'm over here like, ooh, they're booing this person. Like I want to go against them because they're getting booed, and I'm gonna say woohoo. Like I like the experience. Like it's not that I don't watch wrestling. It's about the experience.
Except if it's Cole Carter.
Yeah.
Cole Carter is one of my favorite AEW people.
Independent wrestling is always going to give you a different experience, and again, right. it is a lot more personal. So I completely get that. And even going to WWE or AEW, depending on where you sit, is going to give you a different experience. If you're all the way in the nosebleeds, it's going to give you a different experience than if you're in front row or five rows deep. So yeah, of course, experience is a big thing. To go to, I think that's your dad, right, Harley? Yeah. When will we be back on WWE, or when can we see you in AEW? Who the hell knows? Because there was a time where I think AEW called me and like they needed me within like 2 weeks or something like that. It was very quick. So I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I wish I did, but that's okay.
We'd love to see you on AEW or whatever.
Yeah.
Listen, if you ever come on to WWE or AEW, I will watch wrestling for you.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
It's okay. That's okay, because I said that to a lot of wrestlers already, so you're good. I'm just basically selling myself out there.
Oh, all right.
Anyways, I do have a question.
Okay.
So, your first ever match, like, do you remember, like, who it was against? Like, 'cause, like, I would like to hear about your first match ever.
So, I count this as my first match, but not like my official debut of like my wrestling career. is because my first ever like match in front of fans after training was against my trainer Bill, and we had like a little student show. We had we had some friends and family come to the training center and just kind of like watch us to see how we've been doing up to that point. So that was like my first match, I would say. But my first match, because again, I don't count it because it was for our training center. My first match on a show, for another company, I faced, I teamed with my old partner Sebastian Cruz, or Chrono Chris at the time, and we faced a guy by the name of Mars, the God of War, and Pretty Boy Eric Hiller. So that tag match, I don't remember a lot from it. I just remember going to the locker room afterwards, and we all kind of like had a big hug because I think it was all of our first match on another show, other than like the student show. So I think we were all just like pretty happy with ourselves. Like, okay, we did it. But the match with Bill, I remember 100% because it was a very big initiation, and times were completely different in 2006. It was a lot harder. It wasn't as accepting, and getting beat up and taking a lot of abuse was like the normal. So part of that match, I know that Bill wanted to hit me with a chair, and in his mind, with the way that it worked, was this is your initiation. So when he was going to hit me with the chair, he was like, don't put your hand ups, don't protect yourself. Like, you just got to take it. You got to be a man. And nowadays that's stupid. Oh, I have to take a concussion to show that, I want to be a wrestler. Like, no, that's not the way that things are anymore. But at the time it was like, yeah, of course. Like, I want this more than anything. Like, do it. And the story I tell all the time is when he hit me with the chair wrapped around my neck and I was falling backwards. So then it was kind of like a Spider-Man moment as I'm falling, because everything kind of like went into slow motion. So I knew the chair was around my neck and I was falling backwards. And I'm like, well, if I fall, like the chair might break my neck. So I was like, oh crap, I got to get this off of me. So as I'm falling, I had the knowledge to like push the chair off my head before I fell, which again, like happened in a flash. But to me, it was like just complete slow-mo, which I guess I was probably concussed, but luckily, like the chair came off, everything was fine. But overall, I loved that match so much because that was more of like all of my hard work paid off to that moment. And then when the debut happened, it was like, okay, now it happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No. Wow. No, I could not take a chair over my head. No, I could not do it.
And nobody should. Like, now we have so much more knowledge about concussions and, what happens to your brain and everything of that sort. So no, absolutely. And, nobody should. And that's why that's why no one really does it anymore. It's outlawed. A lot of the athletic commissions in certain states say like, you can't absolutely do it. Even if you put your hands up, you can't do it. So I'm glad that the business moved in the direction that it did for that, for that aspect.
And it's constantly changing too. Like, I remember, like, it's just different. It's different every year. Because, like, I mean, when I was 14, it was different from where it is today. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how things change.
For good or for worse. Take your pick.
I don't know. Depending on how it is that time,
Depending on the aspect that you talk about. There are some good things and there's some bad things. So, but It is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's wrestling.
For her, she probably prefers, like, when you come out, she'll be like, he's a good guy. But then freaking Buddha will come out, she'll be like, yes, mister.
Literally, PPW is the only place where I'll be like, yeah, it's the heel. And, like, a lot of times I'll be like, yeah, the heel. But, like, PPW, I know I can, like, root for the heel, and people will, like, get mad at me. And, like, that motivates me to yell even more for the heel. So, like, why not?
Fair enough.
Do you ever see yourself coming back to PPW?
No. I've done more than my share to make that a possibility. It's not on me. That, like, I don't need to go into it too much, but it's not my decision, because if it was my decision, it would have happened already. So it is what it is, and that's fine. I don't need to.
Okay. What's the best advice you have been given for wrestling?
That's tough because I've been given so much. I don't know if I could put on like what's best, but I think I've made so many mistakes and I've learned from each one of them. So I think like I've learned more from the mistakes that I've made than somebody else coming to me and saying, "Hey, here's some advice." Because I really didn't have that person. Like I had my trainers, of course, but after I was done with the school and I was doing my thing, like I really didn't have them, as a guide, or I didn't have them as a sidekick or a partner or a friend anymore, to help like guide me in the right direction for my career. And then different people would give me advice that might have been trying to be like that big brother aspect that I didn't necessarily agree with their advice. I remember when like MySpace was blowing up. I know I'm dating myself, but MySpace was blowing up. Facebook was kind of taking over. A lot of people were like, "Oh, I'm too interactive with fans on social media." They're like, "You need to cut that out. You're too personal." Now everything is social media. I saw where wrestling was going and the interaction was going. So again, like you just have to kind of like figure out your path and then learn from it. So I think the majority of the advice that I would say now has always been from my screw ups. So that's, at least there's positivity out of it.
Yeah. Sabrina, you got any questions?
My notebook says no. There's nothing on here.
I just have two more. One, where can people find you? Shows, social media.
Socials.
Yeah.
So the best place to always find me for shows is going to be MCW, which is Maryland Championship Wrestling, for anybody that doesn't know. The majority of our shows are in Joppa, Maryland. So you can kind of look that up and see how far away it is for you. That's where I am, and that's my number one company. I absolutely love being part of MCW. I'm never leaving MCW. I just, grow more and more every time that I'm there. So that's where you could definitely find me. And not saying that I don't wrestle for other companies, because I do wrestle in Florida. I do wrestle in West Virginia, Pennsylvania when I'm around. I'm looking to go back to North Carolina area. So I do pop up elsewhere, but 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be in Maryland. On social media, the majority of my social medias are all at KEKOA Pro. Some of them are slightly different, but if you go to one of them, it has my link tree in there, so it'll take you to everything else. So I'm pretty easily found.
Yeah. And the last question for me would be, do you sell any merch? I mean, I already know the answer, but
No, he doesn't.
I mean,
no, he don't. Other people.
No, not at all. It's not like I'm wearing the brand new Job's Not Finished, Polynesian shirt or anything of that
shameless
sort.
Shameless promo. I'm not wearing this shirt right now.
Yeah, it's not like Harley is wearing, one of the throwback shirts, as we'll call it now. It's now that a couple has come out since, and I haven't been able to see Harley, but yeah, you could if you find me on social media and you go to that link tree, you're going to find my Pro Wrestling Tees store, but it's prowrestlingtees.com /KEKOA is where you're able to find that. I'm just very impressed with the line of questioning that that I've gotten from Harley. Sabrina, I don't know, your notebook seemed a little dry today.
Listen,
but overall, well done. I'm glad somebody came prepared.
Okay. KEKOA, you have to understand. This week I have been under the weather. I'm trying.
Listen, I'm just trying to be a heel so that maybe you'll actually cheer for me, or maybe you'll actually like me. So I'm trying to shift the direction of this podcast here. But apparently that didn't even work. So I don't know what to do now.
But honestly, I'm gonna put it here. Do you not remember? I would always root for the heels. I rooted for Mark Angel, which was like the biggest heel in Elite Wrestling back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and like the only heel I didn't root for is Wyndham.
Yeah, but nobody cheers for Wyndham anyway, so that wouldn't matter.
So true.
You can't say that you only cheered for the heels, because I know that you cheered for me. I know that you were a big supporter of me when you were younger. Now, I get it. you know, you don't want it to be, and that's perfectly
No,
fine.
okay.
That's perfectly fine. It's
In this
understandable.
podcast, people are going to be commenting Sabrina literally is like,
The
heal
worst.
or die. Heal or die.
Yeah. So then, you know, you say that if I, you know, if I make it to WWE or AEW, then you're like, okay, well, I'll watch you. Oh, well, yeah, but depending on who I am, though,
Yeah.
you might not even want to. So there's so much. Harley, we can just we can block.
No.
You know, we can just.
Harley?
Wow.
Oh, this is our podcast? You're going to do it to me?
Man, oh my gosh.
No, like I do want to say like thank you just so much for making time, because like I know that you're just really busy, and like it means a lot to both me and Harley for you to be on our podcast.
Well, I always am a big believer on you know, keeping your feet on the ground, and by all means I have no reason to say that, you know, everybody is human at the end of the day, but you know, I know who has always supported me. I know Harley's always been a supporter of me. As much as I joke around, I know that you've always been a supporter of me, and you know, the relationship that I have with the both of you, and even your extended family, is something that I'm always going to be appreciative of, because you know, one day everything is going to be completely different, or one day there might not be wrestling there. But the mere fact that you know, I've always had both of you in my corner is something that I'll always appreciate. So this is my way of, you know, of course, making sure that I show my appreciation, because there's not much else, you know, I can do. This is the very least I can do, is just take an hour out of my day to, you know, to come help you guys, or, you know, to be a part of this. So I appreciate you.
And Harley and I have been working on this for like a long time. It's been a long time coming for sure. So now that we're finally kicking and rolling, like this is actually, do I dare say it? This is like the first podcast we've had like
Right.
absolutely no issues.
Good.
Like yesterday, me and Harley were having issues because there was background noise in both of our corners. We had to mute ourselves every time that the wrestlers spoke, and it was just a lot. But no, I'm so glad that like it all worked out, and now I get to go pray to Jesus. You know?
Good. Go do it. Go do it. And Jesus is actually going to be like, you know, I feel like your wardrobe selection today could have been a little bit better, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here supporting the religion, and, you know, being with us today. But he is a forgiver. So there you go.
There you go. Harley, do you want
to? Okay. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. Yeah, till next time.
Till next time.